Welcome. I'm Susan Young, Mindful Coaching. Today we're putting a foot in and exploring accepting reality as it is. And when I looked at, there's a lot of different people writing books about it. There was a book that talked about, looking at behavior and health and those kinds of things. And I just they didn't light me up. So what I wanted to do instead was go back to what is the definition within Buddhism of accepting reality as it is. And what the Buddhists say, what we want to do is address the difference between our view of reality and the actual state of things. So what they call it in Buddhism is developing a right or correct view, samadhi. So seeing reality as it is an essential prerequisite for mental health and well-being, is what this is their definition. So having studied with a Buddhist teacher for many years and really trying to get a sense of both of their progress and the teachings that it comes from, what it came to for me was a deeper understanding of, I didn't get who that was. Someone else is joining us. Oh yeah, Sarah. So if we talk about, hi, Sarah. If we talk about, we're talking about accepting reality as it is and addressing the difference between our own perception of reality and the actual state of things, developing a correct view, seeing reality as it is. So if we go back to why are you here? Why are we here on the path of conscious awakening? What is it that draws us? So if we look at how do we strengthen and stabilize our wakefulness, how do we stay alert and aware and oriented inward while still staying conscious of the external reality, and learn how to do that with more practice, that would be, from what I've heard from you, and I know my own path and others over many years, this experiment of how do we experience this world. Some people say there is no external objective reality as it is, as we've come into what we call postmodernism, standpoint theory, which is just what it sounds like. It says, if you're in a village in the Sudan, your experience is going to be different than you live in New York City as a developer or a marketer. Your experience is different depending on where you're at. So that might be true, that our reality is different depending on our point of view where we live on the globe. That may be true. And your own reality of what's happening around you. So the example that Rick Hanson uses, who, as you know, is a very skillful psychologist, many years of mindfulness. So he says, when our mind is focused on something, on solving something, our attention keeps coming back to that. So say, choose something. I'm going to ask you to do this in the meditation. In your mind's eye, say you love cookies or you love ice cream or you love craft dinner, something that you would prefer not to eat. I'll use a cookie for me. So I see the cookie. I was at a gathering on Saturday and they had those President's Choice chocolate chip cookies and I used to eat them. I loved them. I saw the cookie and immediately the cookie became part of my consciousness. Me then becomes part of it. So cookie's there and then me want cookie. Me want cookie. So that's the second part of my consciousness that emerges. The third part is the I don't know, it's the higher self. It's the wiser self that says, no, I'll have the sugar, I'll have the gluten, I'll have the chocolate, I'll be like a whirling, I'll be a whirling dervish of insanity. I won't sleep. So it's not for me. So now there's three parts of consciousness: the cookie, which is part, me want cookie, which is part, me don't want cookie because the consequences are not good for me. And then the fourth part often comes in that says, but me deserve cookie. I worked really hard to get here, to get to this gathering. I've been working hard all day, and here I am at this gathering, and there's these really good cookies, and they taste so good. I deserve it. So there's often elements that are occurring in our consciousness. Now, if you happen to be a psychotherapist, you might be familiar with, some of you may be familiar with internal family systems, which is a psychological approach where we're looking at different parts of ourselves that are occurring. We're not talking about a psychological construct. We're talking about inner conscious awareness. So the Buddhists go on to say that this structure, these layers of thinking, is what creates our own suffering, because there I am sitting having a very nice time spending at least half of my consciousness for probably half an hour. Me want cookie. No, can't have cookie. So then I'm back and forth in this thing about just wanting one cookie. Can I like have it? You've all been there. You know what I mean. The craving, the letting go, the wanting, the higher self. So when we have this image, say if we picture a house where there's different doors, and then we close that door and lock it. No cookies for Susie, no cookies for Susan, lock that door. Then there's a feeling of repression. So then we can't stay conscious and aware. So for at least half an hour, I was not conscious and aware fully because I was engaged in this battle for me want cookie. So when we lock that away, okay, so no more cookie, we still separate ourselves out. So how do I feel the wanting? Let it roll through me, come back to presence, and just keep letting it come through me. I forgot for half an hour that I was conscious. Then I remembered. Then I was able to just tune in and run the energy within the being that wants something, that imagines it's going to make me happy. Because it's not going to make me happy. I've done that, probably 100,000 times, where I've had a cookie, then I've had 10, then I'm no good because then I get the sugar and the chocolate. So example of whatever you have. So I'm going to finish this part with talking about Tara Brach, who wrote a book you may be familiar with called Radical Acceptance. She says, when we accept all of those parts of ourselves, we continue to align with our true self. We open the doors. We don't repress or deny or feel shame about wanting the cookie or whatever it is in your world that you want more of or something different of. So acceptance, radical acceptance of reality includes recognizing that something exists whether you like it or not. So how do we first recognize it, become aware of it, and then surrender to this reality? So a health issue, the aging process, an injury, a partner who leaves us, a close friend of mine whose child died at the age of 3 from cancer. There's many things occurring. The war between Hamas, and this has now gone on over a year, and Israel. These are all things that we then begin to accept and surrender, and then we can discern, do we need to make changes? Is there something I can do? So for almost half an hour, I'm sitting at this gathering, not really able to participate because I'm me want cookie. And then after a little while, I remembered, I could choose consciousness here. So a tune inward, love myself as I am, accept that. Next time there was an opportunity, I was with good friends, I could share that I was obsessed with the cookie. And then we all laughed and let it go, because we've all had those things. And then when I was preparing for today and doing the research and looking at all the things, and I remembered Rick Hanson's example of the cookie. So I thought I'll just bring myself forward so that you too can relate to whatever it is for you that causes that, whether it's work, something you might believe is morally higher than something else. So I want to keep working, or I want to exercise beyond what is good, or there are different ways we can bring that. So Tara Brach in Radical Acceptance continues to say, when we accept all of ourselves and we accept the reality as it is, whether we like it or not, we can begin the surrendering process. So then we can tap into our innate wisdom and higher selves that will allow us to become more conscious and wakeful. How did I define it at the front? Strengthening and stabilizing wakefulness, staying aware and alert, orienting both inward and outward. That's mindfulness with a willingness to do that rather than fighting what's going on. We have to go through the feelings first for sure. And that, me want cookie. My bike got stolen Friday night. I just moved a week ago. I didn't lock up the shed. someone came in and stole it, and I was really upset, felt violated, and then I felt angry. And then someone said to me a few hours later, oh, maybe they needed it more than you. I get their point. Maybe they did, and I want to get there. But it's, I needed to feel angry, violated. I needed to go through that. And as I've shared with you before, sometimes I do a spiritual bypass where I want to skip over the grittiness of feelings, the grief, the loss. I don't want to over exaggerate the loss of a 15-year-old bike, but it was an important bike to me. And it was a really high quality bike. So how you accept that loss and how you move forward, and those are all things that we have to acknowledge psychologically and to keep our mental health stable. So I'll stop now.